My name is Julie Roy, and I'm a grade 5 math teacher in French Immersion. And today I'm going to do a video explaining how we teach addition of double-digit numbers. So I'll start with a progression of how we learn that and what students need to know prior to learning addition with double-digit numbers. The important part about addition with two-digit numbers, the ultimate goal is that students can do this mentally. That's where we want to bring them. Anytime there's just two parts to a number to add, students should be able to do that in their heads. But we need sometimes to teach them how to manipulate these numbers mentally. There's something called the working memory, and if a student's working memory is not very that long and they can only hold one piece of information at a time, you need to do extra work to teach them how they can extend their working memory to hold two pieces of information and then tackle them together. To start with this video, it's important that they know how their basic facts work, their basic addition facts work. If they do not know their basic addition facts, they will not be able to carry a two-digit by two-digit addition mentally. So if they can't do basic facts, that's where you need to go back and work. But if they are quite fluent with their basic facts, you can start looking at double-digit addition. The first kind that you want to start with are numbers that are multiples of 10. So what you want to look at is 70 as really 7 tens. And you want to look at 80 as 8 tens. So when you add these numbers, you really want to think about 7 tens plus 8 tens. That's really the same as 7 and 8. And 7 plus 8 is 15, as students would recall from their basic fact strategies. But it's 15 what? It's 15 tens. And that's where your 150 comes from. Very, very important that students do not look at this as a 7 plus an 8 and add a 0. It's really 7 tens. You're not really adding a 0. It is that you have 15 multiples of 10 in this number. 15 groups of 10, and that 15 groups of 10 makes 150. It's not 15 zeros or 15 in front of a 0 either. Those thinking skills will impede students' understanding later on. So it's very important at an early stage to talk about 7 tens and 8 tens, and that gives you 15 tens. And we write 15 tens this way, the same way we write 5 tens as 50. Okay? So students sometimes need practice with how to write numbers of tens, and you can do that if this is not clear. And the first type would just be multiples of 10. When students are comfortable with that and they can do a whole slew, you can have them separated on pieces of paper where they just see one question at a time. So here you'd have 90 plus 30. They would think 9 tens plus 3 tens, 12 tens, 120. Or here 7 tens, 8 tens, 15 tens, 150. Or 5 tens, 9 tens, 140 for 14 tens. I prefer to do questions one at a time because students don't use their previous answer to find the new answer. In life, really, when you have a new problem, you don't base it on a problem you just solved before. You have to be able to think about it on the spot about problems you already know. Addition, we do front end. We look at the tens first because it leads to being able to estimate answers quite easily, right? So in 2012, really, we wouldn't necessarily use our brain or a piece of paper to calculate a huge addition answer. What we would really want to know is just about where the answer is. So when you start using the front of the number of tens, if it's a two-digit number, it will help you find that estimate quite easily. And the more you work with students, they will be able to find accurate answers that way as well. So once students are comfortable with just a multiple of tens, you want to use numbers that are one multiple of 10 and the other one that has a number in the ones place. So here it just adds one little twist to the problem, and students generally find this fairly easy. What you want them to do is look at 8 tens plus 4 tens. So again, looking at your place value, and that gives you 12 tens, and then there's 3 left over. Right? So 12 tens, 120 plus 3, gives you an answer of 123. Okay? Here I'm writing it down because for some students the first step will be to write it down. Then what you want them to move towards is being able to hold the information in their heads. So the way we teach this would be to look at the front number, so 8 tens, 4 tens, that's 12 tens or 120, hold that in one hand, and then think 120, 120, then add the second part, which would be 3. So 120 plus 3, when you combine them together you get 123. And that's how students will be able to verbalize that answer, but do it mentally. So again, on one piece of information one hand, one piece of information in the other hand, then you combine them for your final answer. So again, when students are quite comfortable with that, you want to add the third challenge, which would be having a problem like 87 plus 74. Here you see that both these numbers have number in the one place, so they're not multiples of tens, and they each get over the tens or the hundreds mark, and that really creates a nice challenge for a student. And generally when they start learning with these numbers, they can carry the same strategy with numbers that don't do that. So here again, I would do 8 tens, 7 tens for my 15 tens or 150. And I look at my 7 ones, 4 ones for my 11 ones. When I add those two parts together, I get 161. If students have trouble with this part where they have to add the 150 and the 11, maybe what they don't understand is how to add numbers to multiple of 10, and you can go back with that kind of addition to practice. Problems like 50 plus 12 or 16, or 50 plus 18, or 60 plus 19. But generally when students are ready to do these kinds of problems, they already know how to do this. But just make sure to check where the problem arises if they cannot get the accurate answer mentally. When students are working with these kinds of numbers, again, you can give them little cards or problem where there's only one question at a time and ask them to figure out the answer mentally. So again, here if you look at this problem, you would have 6 tens, 8 tens, that's 14 tens or 140, and 8 plus 4 is 12. So 140 plus 12 is your 152. And that's what you would want the student to verbalize. At one point, students won't need to verbalize the middle part, the 140 plus the 12. They'll just be able to say 152, and that's really what you want as the end product. But there's always a learning phase, and the learning phase, that's when they will have to say 140 plus 12. Okay, so if they need that, you let them use that, but you encourage them to just do it mentally as time goes on. So if they need more practice, make sure you give them sufficient problems. And again, one problem at a time always helps students who have problems with many problems on a page, right? PowerPoints with simple questions always really work well. So this is it for double-digit addition. Thank you and have a great day.